Evening, everyone, and welcome to Cherries Red Army. And yes, I'm back in the presenting chair. Although Jon and the team did a very good job the other night without me, we're back where I belong, controlling the show. Well, this evening, and we've got lots going on. We're going to talk about last night's result. We're going to look ahead to Nottingham Forest on Saturday. We're going to do the preview, and then it's transfer deadline day. Bournemouth have already made one loan signing. We'll talk about that later on. And will we do any more business between now and the end of that window? Maybe. We will see. And we might get a few special guests if they can get away from their busy jobs that they're doing at the moment on transfer deadline day. We might get some guests on just to tell us how they feel it's all going for AFC Bournemouth. But you are on Cherries Red Army, and we need you to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also hit the like button this evening. It really does help. I can't stress enough. Do hit that like button. Just do it now for me. Really appreciate it. And if you weren't able to join us live, thank you for checking out this video, and put your thoughts in the comments on Nottingham Forest transfer deadline day. And this video is sponsored by Aquashine Exteriors. This video is sponsored by Aquashine Exteriors, professional jet washing and cleaning services across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, including Dorset, Hampshire and Wiltshire. Are you feeling it's time to get that driveway nice and shiny for when you come home? Or are you wanting to get that guttering tidied up and spotless again? They deliver this, plus much, much more. Please head into the description below where you'll find their details for their website, including the socials, Facebook and Instagram. You also need to find their before and after portfolio. You can also call them on 07503 998 088 for a free quotation. Don't wait till next week. Don't think you'll do it another day. Pick up the phone, give them a call, check them out. Do let us know who's joining us in the chat. Tell us where you're joining us from if you want to, and how are you enjoying your evening? What are you drinking this evening on transfer deadline day? But we're going to turn our attentions first to Nottingham Forest. We had a cracking fixture against them a few months ago. We battled it out for promotion. We done it automatically. They did it through the playoffs. And on Saturday, it's the first tie between the teams in the Premier League away at the City Ground. And both teams have had different approaches to attacking this Premier League season and staying up. Well, let's get our guests on. Let's talk Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest at the City Ground.
Cheeky one, square, and
Welcome, and let's go round the room to our guests. And Steve, I've put Jon in the sin bin for now. He'll be back on later on. He did a fantastic job the other night, but good to have you on this Nottingham Forest preview stroke transfer deadline day.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. I think I'm going to put a steward's inquiry about you being back in. Thought Jon did a stellar job.
Absolutely. Good to have this guy back on the channel as well. Matt Davies, good result last night. We're going to talk about that and this Nottingham Forest fixture. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Good to be here. Good evening to everybody. Yeah, I thought Jon stepped in well. It was a great late substitution, wasn't it?
It was. And our opposition guest for this match preview is the Maradona of the Midlands. You need to tell me about that. And from here on in, I'm just going to call you Maradona because I don't think I can say all that every time. How are you? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us about the Maradona of the Midlands. I assume it's a podcast.
Well, no, it's the podcast is 1865 Forest, Nottingham Forest Premier League podcast. It's just I started using it about 20 years ago when I was doing articles and things online, and everybody used to nobody used their real name in those days online. So I picked the Maradona of the Midlands because I liked there was always a Maradona of some region or other, like the Maradona of the Carpathians. So it was Hadji and the Bull of the Bosphorus, that was Hakan Suker, and I just like the at the beginning of my name. So the Maradona in the Midlands, I thought that would do me.
Fantastic. And you are jumping on the show late. There was going to be Rich from the 1865, but you've jumped in, and I will add your details to the description of this video once we are finished. And we'll be talking to you very, very soon. Let's see who's joining us. Sunny Nell is joining us. She wants to know why we're late. Yeah, sorry about that. We do try to be on time. We've also got Morgan Scott, Cameron Meach, Martin, how are you? Jon Spark, he'll be joining us this evening to tell us what he thinks about the transfer deadline day. And we've also got Wayne, Fulham fan, in the comments as well. I'm sure he's happy with the business that Fulham are doing. But we're focusing on Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest. Now, Maradona, Nottingham Forest, I'm sure you're happy with the squad that you're building to attack this Premier League. But first of all, we always review the last fixture. Not a great seat view at the moment. What happened last night?
Yeah, we just didn't turn up, really. Fair enough, Man City are probably the best team on the planet. And when they're hot, they're hot. But we just didn't even lay a glove on them, really. We didn't put in any tackles, didn't even foul them or anything like that. And they just let them walk all over us. That was a disappointing thing. So we didn't play well at all. Man City were brilliant. They've got Haaland up front. He absolutely bullied Joe Worrell. I've not seen that before, because Joe Worrell's a big guy himself, and he was pushed around like a rag doll at times. And they're worthy winners, and we were just sitting there hoping that they didn't get to 9.
I was going to say, Steve Cook wasn't in that starting 11 last night. He wouldn't have let 6 go in, would he?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned about how big Haaland was or is. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. When you saw him up in the flesh up at Man City a few weeks back, it's exactly that. You think some of these centre backs you see out there, massive guys in their own right, and then you see Haaland, and he's just another level. It's almost unfair, and I'm not. He's just so powerful, big, strong. It's just a physique that I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to go. Sounded a bit, the other way here, but it's almost unfair. He's an absolute beast of a player. He just brushes play. They bounce off him.
My 15-year-old says he's a cheat code. So maybe he is. Matt, that's a heavy loss for Nottingham Forest. Is Steve Cooper's job on the line? Is that what generally happens when you lose heavily?
No,
I don't think so. I think Steve Cooper's got much more of an affinity and a connection with Nottingham Forest and their supporters and the club in general than unfortunately Scott Parker did with us. So no, there's no way Steve Cooper's job's on the line. It's going to happen to a lot of teams, isn't it? At Man City, I mean, we managed to keep Haaland quiet. We just forgot about the other 9 outfield players, really. The same as we kept Salah quiet at Liverpool, just forgot about everybody else. So we did our job there in one or a couple of respects. But I wasn't surprised last night at Forest result. I watched you against. Can I just call you Maz for short? Is that all right?
Go. Yeah.
I watched you against Tottenham on Sunday, and I actually thought I was impressed. I thought you looked a good unit. You looked like you were fighting for the cause. You looked really organised, and I think you were just lacking that bit of quality, weren't you, in the final third? Because you had quite a few opportunities, and you just needed to stick the ball in the back of the net. And I think you're learning very quickly just how ruthless this Premier League can be. Because up the other end, you've only got to give Kaye a sniff, or any of these top players.
Well, that was the difference, wasn't it?
And the ball's in the back of your net. And that was the only difference, wasn't it, really? But
yeah.
I've got no doubt that Forest will be okay this season. I mean, obviously, there's debate around the number of signings that you've made, and will that unsettle the squad, and everything that comes with that. But I just feel that Steve Cooper is a manager that I rate very highly in terms of his managerial and his coaching ability. And I think you've got enough about you with Cooper in charge to safely stay up.
Go for it, Maradona.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that was a feeling. I mean, I think everybody's confidence was shaken a bit after last night, but everybody was in very much good spirits after the Tottenham game. They sort of got cheered off at half time and full time, even though they lost. And a lot of people were saying Kane was a difference. It's just finding a way of playing. The last couple of games, Steve Cooper's done a slightly strange thing where he hasn't picked a striker. So that's caused a bit of debate amongst the Forest fans. But bringing in so many players, you just got to find the right blend, and hopefully you can do it sooner rather than later.
But Steve, taking away that City game, like we talked about, what we were looking at for Bournemouth when Parker was in charge before he got sacked was we just want to compete. It's not the losing. We didn't expect to beat Man City, Liverpool or Arsenal. We just want to be in football matches, and, you know, not being in football matches after 10 minutes and you travelling all that way to see us get tonked, you know. And when you watch Nottingham Forest the next day against Tottenham and they compete and they challenge for every ball, and that's what we wanted, didn't we? We just want to be in football matches after 70 and 80 minutes.
Yeah, I think ultimately the fan base at Bournemouth just want to see us up for the fight. They want to see a good performance at the end of the day. And I'll also group Fulham into that. You know, the start they've had, they've competed with teams. And I think Forest, you know, they going back to that match against Spurs, I thought they were excellent. I thought they were actually the better side, to be fair. Had it not been for the difference in class of the strikers, I think it could have easily gone the other way. I think they dominated the ball quite well. Spurs allowed them to, but it's a breath of fresh air to see teams attack the league. It's kind of harks back to us a little bit in the, you know, good. We keep doing this, don't we? Going back to Eddie, but that's the kind of way we approached it first time. And now under Parker, not so much now because he's gone, but you know, those previous games, we just weren't even laying a glove on people. We were just sitting there trying to just keep it, try not to be a cricket score. And ultimately, the last one turned into a bitter one.
Right. For us, though, Matt, we had to try and get back to some positivity on the pitch. We did that at Dean Court last night. Wolves were very technically good, but they can't finish their dinner. And I've had Wolves fans tell me today if they could shoot, they would have won last night. But I thought we worked for every ball, Matt. I thought we challenged, we battled. Lloyd Kelly on the line. There was a bit of luck, but it's what we needed. We had Tommy Elphick on the sideline, Sean Cooper, Gary O'Neill looked organised in what he was trying to achieve. And it stopped the rot, and a clean sheet is progression.
Yeah, absolutely. Last night was all about restoring a bit of pride in our team and in our football club, wasn't it? After what's happened over the last certainly over the last few days, with the debacle obviously at Liverpool, followed by the public sort of outing of Scott Parker and everything that's gone with that. It's turned into a little bit of a circus, and it's not what you really want early stage of the season. I understand the reasons why the board have done it, fully back it as well. But last night, I think I was heartened to see that Tommy Elphick was involved in, and Steve, is already sort of harping back to the old days. But you want people in your trenches that have got some character and some fight about them, but also some passion and people that care about your football club. You don't want them rolling out excuses about, well, we're not going to compete this season because we haven't got enough and we can't do this and we can't do that. You want people that are going to die for the cause, and Tommy's one of them. Sean Cooper, another great servant. So, and credit to Gary O'Neill, because I think Gary O'Neill would have looked at it last night and thought, look, we've just got to be solid, and we've got to show that we're up for this fight and that we're going to fight for every ball. We're going to fight from 1 to 95 minutes relentlessly. And yes, we did ride our luck a little bit, and that's worrying. We didn't create enough for me in the final third. We didn't post enough of a threat going forward, and we did look second best at times on a technical level against the Wolves side that are currently in the bottom three. So that is a massive concern. And if we're talking about not really bringing in any more bodies before the transfer window, I know Jack Stevens has signed on loan today, but I see him very much as a bit of a squad player, really, and backup for us defensively. In many ways, I think it is a concern, but at least we restored some pride last night, and at least the fans could walk away having seen the players put everything in, stick together for the cause, and show that commitment, that desire, and that cohesion as a unit, as a team, to fight for everything and to get that result. So that was the pleasing aspect, and Gary O'Neill would have been pleased with the clean sheet. It's probably as much as we could have expected, really, last night.
Fantastic. Now, Maradona, tell us about this Nottingham Forest team. I've lost count how many players you've signed. Interestingly,
which team?
Interestingly, when you played against Tottenham, you had 9 championship players from last season, not necessarily at your club, but they all played championship football last season, which was interesting. But where are we at with Nottingham Forest's spending? And are you worried that having too many players could cause a bit of an issue?
No, I mean, this is a bit of a misconception. We haven't got too many players. We've probably got the same number of players as everybody else.
You lost a lot.
We've lost 26 players.
Yeah.
And a lot of the players who were at the club last season just weren't even good enough to get into our championship squad. You're looking at people like Lyle Taylor. We sent him off on loan last season to Birmingham because he couldn't get into our bench. We were left with people like him and Cafu and Joe Lolly, who couldn't get into the team last season. So it's a bit of a misconception. We haven't got too many players. I think we just today signed our 19th and maybe the 20th players. And that all gives a 25-man squad with 2 or 3 under 21 players on top. So it's not a massive squad. It's difficult. The championship players thing, that's the market we were in, because having to buy so many players, we couldn't spend. So ideally, you'd come up with a brilliant team, add 2 or 3 sort of cherries on top of the icing, spend 20, 30 million on 2 or 3 players. But we had to buy a whole new squad. So we've had to buy sort of average £5-6 million players. So for that sort of value, you're looking either abroad or in the championship. So the players we bought, I think we've been quite impressed with them. Most of them done well. The players from abroad are a bit of an unknown quantity. We don't know how they're going to do yet, but it's just getting them to gel. That's the main thing at the moment. Because last night there was 2 players making their first starts in Coyote and who else was it? Lodi from Atletico Madrid. So it's a difficult place to make your debuts, and I think we could have done with freshening it up front last night. We played Johnson and Morgan Gibbs White again, and they seemed shattered to me after Saturday's game against Spurs. And I thought we'd maybe bring in Tayo Awonini and Dennis to start the game, but they didn't. So I don't know. It's difficult to know. People talk about spending, but we haven't really spent that much when you consider the per player spend.
I suppose that is the question, isn't it, Steve? Is how they gel and whether they can hit the ground running. And that's maybe why Steve Cooper did go for more of players that played in the Championship and come up and they're used to the football in this country. But look, they could be a very big force with the squad that they could rotate.
Yeah, and there's a case to say that when you get these new players in that haven't experienced Premier League whatsoever, like the guy, I'm not even going to attempt his name, but I think he's from Union Berlin, wasn't he? The striker, was that right?
Yeah, we just call him Taiwo.
Yeah, and then you've got Dennis as well. Well, Dennis has had experience, but players like him, you might need to sort of carefully, gradually, slowly integrate them into the team and give them minutes, and then get them up to speed that way. And as Matt's already said, Steve Cooper, I highly rate him. I think he's a great manager, and I'm kind of a little bit jealous you got him actually. But he knows what he's doing. He's got a lot of players there to keep happy and get into that team. Lodi's another one. I think that's a hell of a coup, that one.
Yeah,
he's going to be looking to make his name, make his mark, because he's got a national squad to get into. So yeah, these are highly capable players. It's all about getting them to gel. And I think there's no better guy than Steve Cooper out there at the minute. You're talking about young, good managers out there.
Matt, is this fixture a little bit tasty after last season?
Yeah, there's going to be a bit of an edge to it. Of course there is, for various different reasons. Obviously, not just the game itself, which bizarrely managed to culminate the season almost in May due to the storm in February when it was supposed to be played, and all the furore that there was.
Don't start that.
Yeah, obviously, I'm just highlighting why there might be a bit of added spice to it. 2 clubs, obviously, that you expect to be competing at the bottom end of the table, maybe. Certainly, I think we probably will. What Forest will do, time will tell. So that there will be that edge to it. There's no great rivalry between Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, is there, on a historical level, because we haven't really played each other that much. We've not been in the same division on many occasions, but it will have that added spice. For me, I think it is an opportunity for us to build on what we did on Wednesday night, and we have to go there with a positive mindset and be confident that we can take something from the game. It is probably, as Steve's touched on, a good time to be playing Nottingham Forest, because they are still trying to settle. All their players are still trying to bed in. They're trying to find their best 11, or Steve Cooper is. He's trying to find the right blend. He's trying to get to know his new team. When that many players come into a football club, particularly at this level, it is going to take time for things to settle down. So from that aspect, that's a positive I can take from a Bournemouth point of view, is that we can almost create a bit of a siege mentality ourselves, where we're written off. Everybody thinks we've got no chance, no hope, and we can stay united and together as a squad and maybe take advantage of that a bit. And that's probably one thing that if I was Gary O'Neill and Tommy Elphick, Sean Cooper, I'd be in the players' ear rolls talking about that and trying to motivate them in that respect, because I think it is an opportunity for us to certainly get something from the game, albeit it'll be a tough task.
Maradona, I'm going to get your thoughts on the scoreline in a moment, and I'm going to ask you how confident you are. And I'm sure you are going to be confident at home, because the stadium looks rocking when I've seen it on Sky Sports. So this team that played last night, I'm going to show you the graphic on the screen, and I'm not saying you have to tell me exactly who's starting, because you may not know. But how close do you think this lineup will be to Saturday, or could it be significantly different?
Honestly, I don't know, because I got last night's prediction completely wrong. But I would guess that Jesse Lingard might come in again. And apart from that, I wouldn't really know. I think he's settled on Nico Williams on the right and Lodi on the left. I think that'll be set in stone now, barring injuries. Joe Worrell, McKenna, and Henderson are fixtures as well. It's just that third centre half. Maybe we've signed Boley today from Wolves, so I think he might slip in there. And then the midfield, we've got a load of options there, sort of sitting destructive midfielders now. So might be able to change one or two there. I think a lot of fans will be crying out for one of the strikers to start up front. Taiwo probably, but he hasn't done it for the last two games, so he might have it in his head that he doesn't want to do that. So, but you never know with managers. Sometimes they get a thing in their head and then they're quite stubborn about it and stick to that. That's even though it looks a bit illogical to everybody else. But we'll see.
Do you still need Steve Cook? Just out of interest?
Yeah, he's a good. I mean, when you're talking about it being unfair of Haaland playing against some people, I was sitting there saying on Sunday that it's unfair that Steve Cook's got to play against Harry Kane. It was a bit of an unfair match. I don't think the defence as a whole is quite slow through the middle, and Steve's probably the slowest out of the three. So he's going to be a squad player, but it's good to have him around. He's a good experienced head, and just to have him there to slot in for the odd game, I think he'll be fine against the majority of teams. It's just those top 6 or 7 teams, I think he'll struggle to play against them.
He's a great backup keeper as well.
Yeah.
We know this.
He had another little episode, didn't he, against Tottenham?
Yeah, it was a good palm away.
When you were talking about Steve Cook's pace there, he wasn't talking about you, Steve, because he just said Steve. I just wanted to be really about your pace. Fair. Think about your scoreline then, Maradona, because I do want to just come to Steve. We did a pre-season show, didn't we, talking about players to watch in the Premier League, and you picked out McKenna. How are you thinking he's doing at the moment?
Well, again, I watched him in that the Tottenham game. That's the only game I've seen of Forest so far. And I thought he stood. I think he was a little bit of fault. I mean, they picked it out on the analysis they did on the game for Kane's first goal, and it was early on, and he just didn't engage him quick enough, and he let him have the time to get the shot off. But I think on the whole, he's a really solid defender, and I loved him in the Championship. Thought it was something we could have done with. He's just proper old school style defender for me. He's no nonsense. And he just, I like the way he doesn't. When I say that he didn't, they picked up on the fact he didn't attack the ball there. That is kind of one of, I think, sometimes in his favour, because he doesn't tend to rush. I don't think he tends to rush into and get too tight to players. He tends to drop off, give him a yard, and he can do his defending. But on that occasion, Kane's bearing down, and you've got to go engage the ball. But we'll see how he gets on, how he adapts to the Premier League. I'm sure he'll be fine, because he's, like I said, he's now Scottish international. So, yeah, he's a decent player.
Fantastic. Right, Maradona, really appreciate you coming on to this preview, and good luck for the game on Saturday. Obviously, we hope you don't win, but look, good luck for the rest of the season. But are you feeling confident on Saturday? What's your score prediction from a Nottingham Forest perspective?
I think both teams are struggling to score at the moment, so it'll be quite a tight, low-scoring game. Wouldn't surprise me if it's 0-0 or 1-0 or 1-1 but you don't know because you think I'll be confident. I'm the most unconfident person in the world, and I'm a Forest fan as well. So, but going out of character, I'll say 1-0 to Forest.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on the stream.
No
and
problem.
wish you the best for the rest of the season. We're going to continue because this stream is an extended stream this evening because we will be turning attention to the transfer deadline day very, very soon. But Jon Spark is backstage. We're going to get his thoughts this evening as well. Welcome, Jon Spark. I've got my seat back. Well done the other night. You've done a good job. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you. You don't literally have my seat back because that would be a hell of a journey to get this back from Bournemouth. But yes, I last minute jumping in. I think I did all right. So we'll see what happens later on in.
I think you should put a transfer request in, John's transfer deadline day. Put a transfer request in.
Steve, you did a fantastic job.
Steve, you're meant to back me in the takeover, Steve.
It's all going on behind the scenes, John.
Now, I've not really had much preparation for this preview because we had the Wolves game last night. I was up till 2:00 doing the match day vlog. Then we've had transfer deadline day today. But look, we're gonna bring this preview to a close very, very soon. So we'll get your score predictions in a moment. But we'll do a quick guess of player. There's quite a few players in this one. Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest. There's quite a lot to choose from. But do let us know. So as we go, I think Steve won the last one after the first clue. I've not really written any notes, guys. So we're going to. Has it
ever gone further than the first guess?
No, I've gone back to the drawing board. I think after Nottingham Forest, we're going to bring a new quiz to these previews. I'm going to go back to the drawing board, but this is guess the player, and I'm going to give you one clue, 5 seconds, shout it out. And I've not even got any notes, so I'm absolutely winging this. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. John, no one look in the chat. No one look in the chat because I haven't disabled it. So this player was born in Derby.
Oh, is that it?
6 foot.
Lyle Taylor.
Keep pressing and guessing. Ooh. He's right-footed.
Grabs.
He was born on the 22nd of August, 1984. No Googling in the chat.
Oh.
Oh. He's also played for Birmingham, Coventry, Swindon, Cardiff, Rotherham, West Brom, Norwich, QPR, Burton.
Everybody then. He's a bit of a journeyman.
Oh, that's a good one. Look,
you've gone completely the other way now. Now we're never going to get it.
He's a goalkeeper.
Oh, Lee Camp.
Oh, you got there first.
John.
Was it John?
I barely got there first, I think. But I think Matt has independently verified.
Lee Camp.
VAR, I want on that one.
There you go. Lee Camp. Not sure if anyone got it in the chat. I wasn't focusing on the chat. I'll have a look in a moment. But it's time for those match predictions. So let's get your score predictions in the chat for Nottingham Forest versus Bournemouth on Saturday. And then we're going to turn our attentions to the transfer deadline day. Whilst you're putting your score predictions in the chat, John, 0-0 this last night. We did a match reaction straight from Dean Court. And positive result, positive performance, heart, passion, and the players looked happier and the fans were definitely happier. It was a good atmosphere inside Dean Court.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, I don't think that's too much of a surprise. I think, as much as I'm sure there were definitely going to be some Bournemouth fans that still felt as though the sacking may have been harsh, I think it's very much a majority agree that it was the right decision to move on from Parker, and Gary Neal certainly put out something that's much more akin to what we're seeing based on last season, and I think it was a much improved performance without a doubt against a team that we would expect to do better against. You've got to you have to admit that Wolves, as much as I still think they're a really good team, are not Liverpool, Arsenal, or City. So getting a clean sheet is really good. and it's something to build on after a rather, well, negative to say the least, last few weeks.
Right, Matt, we didn't lose to Nottingham Forest last season. David Brooks scored at the City Ground. We won 2-1. And Kiefer Moore got us promoted against Nottingham Forest on a beautiful midweek fixture a few months ago. On Saturday, we can't lose, for me. It's not the end of the world if we do. But what are you looking to see from Saturday, and what's your score prediction?
I'm just looking to see, I think I've touched upon it already. I'm just looking to see us now build on Wednesday night. Obviously, we've laid the foundation there in terms of how we set up. We look more solid. We're fighting for everything, showing a lot more togetherness, a lot more commitment than we have done in previous games. We've just got to find a balance, and it's going to be tough. But Gary O'Neill's got to find a balance between defence and attack, because it is a trade-off. And I just felt that every time we did commit ourselves, a bit like it, obviously expected at somewhere like Man City away, but every time we opened up, and we did it last night and came out of our shell and sort of ventured forward, that's when we looked at our most vulnerable, and we looked exposed. So it's going to be up to Gary O'Neill really to find the balance between the two and strike that balance in terms of formation, personnel, tactics, how he sets it up. But we have to show more attacking threat, and we have to make chances, because that's something that's sadly lacking at the moment, and it was sadly lacking again last night against opposition, in Wolves, who are struggling at the moment themselves. Yes, they're a fairly solid team themselves, but we just didn't create enough in the final third for me. So that's got to change. So that'll be interesting to see how we shape up. I actually think, football's football, and it has a habit of surprising you in many different ways, good and bad. And our backs are against the wall at the moment. There's a lot of publicity surrounding us in a negative way, a lot of publicity surrounding Nottingham Forest in a more of a positive way. It's the sort of game that we can go up there and get a result and somehow nick a win. I really do believe that. I said earlier, Forest are still settling down with their personnel. Cooper's got to find a way to bed them in and settle them into a sort of a team that's going to move forward. So I think we can take advantage of that if we show that siege mentality, which we have so many times in the past. How many times have we said it before when our backs have been against the wall? Transfer embargoes, minus 17, and we've turned the tables and turned things on their head. And I think we're capable of doing it again. So I'm going to go. If you're asking me for a score prediction, Kurt, I'm going to go 2-1 to Bournemouth with Dom Solanke scoring the winner in the 79th minute.
And his first Premier League goal this season, if that happens, just like it was last season. Steve, want your score prediction for Nottingham Forest versus Bournemouth? Are we going to be up against 19 teams that are going to be favourites this season?
It won't be far off that, yeah. It's going to be a case of, like Matt said, we need a siege mentality, and we need to sort of, we kind of like that underdog tag a little bit, and it sort of suits us. But we have seen the best of us at times with that sort of moniker on us. But I think I'd be happy with. I just want to see a goal would be nice for a start. Get Dom up and running in the Premier League. Kiefer's already. Well, no, he did. Yeah, he's already got one, hasn't he? So he's off and running. So let's get Dom up and running. I'm going to go for a 1-1 though. I think they are looking. It's only going to be a matter of time, and the more games they get together, that team, they're going to get stronger and stronger. So it's probably not a bad time to play them, because they're all gelling in, like we've said. But sooner or later, they will gel, and there's a lot of potent players there that could cause a lot of teams a lot of problems. So I'll go for a draw.
Final shout out to get your score predictions in the chat, and we'll show it on the screen, as I'm going to also match that with Steve. I wanted a win last night, really, because I felt like a draw would be a good result at the City Ground. So I'm going to go 1-1. I hope we can win the game. Hopefully Matt's right and it's 2-1, but I would take a 1-1 at the City Ground. And I'm going to show your scores on the screen in just a moment. And John, that's 1 win, 2 draws. How are you feeling about Saturday?
It's an interesting one. I think Steve is a point I was going to make. Steve said as well, it's a good time to play them. I think it's possibly the best time we're going to get to play Forest, because...
Can I just point something out?
What?
They're close to signing someone else. Apparently.
Yeah, they're very close to. It's actually funny. I saw Carl Anka tweet that his yearly reminder that Michy Batshuayi is still
Exactly
at Chelsea.
that. Yeah.
And then he literally followed that up with, and there we go.
I've just seen it flash up on the screen, and I was like,
he's
God.
rumoured to be close to joining Forest. Exactly what they need. Except I don't think so. But yeah, I think they've got a lot of very good players that they've brought in. I think you've got the likes of Renan Lodi, the new centre mid that they brought in that I can't remember the name of now, that's very highly rated for they brought in from Germany. There's Awani, who's really highly rated from Union Berlin. Niakate at the back. Hell, it's going to be possibly 21 players by the time this all ends up. So the good news is that they won't have settled yet. They can't. You can't make a squad like that gel so quickly. And what we have is a lot of continuity. Obviously, apart from obviously Neto, but Neto and Tavernier were the only two that came into that squad that wouldn't have been in a starting lineup last season. So I would like to see it set up in a 4-3-3 again. Go back to building a little bit deeper and actually sort of like being a bit more part of the midfield as opposed to one of the two up top. But I definitely see us making more chances. And at the moment, their attack's not really clicking either. I think their first goal against West Ham was one of the luckiest goals you're going to see all season. And I don't think they've scored. Have they even scored after that? I'm not entirely sure. Not like we've scored much. Not like we've scored much either. But I think I'm going to be a little bit more positive than normal. I think my head does say probably 1-1, maybe even 0-0. But I think I'm going to go with a 1-0 win. I think Forest are still sort of not really putting it together yet, and I don't expect them to for a little while. Whereas we've shown we can keep them at bay, even if they've had a decent half or whatever against us and nicked a goal, maybe even from a set piece. So I'll go with 1-0. I'll be positive.
Brilliant. There's your match predictions, and that's Nottingham Forest versus Bournemouth. Let's get your scorelines in here, and then we're going to turn our attention to the transfer window. Sammy is back. 3-1 to the Cherries. Cameron has gone for 2-1. Mark, how are you? Thank you for the nice message. 1-1. Stephen, 2-0. Thank you for the lovely comment on the vlog, Stephen. Really appreciate that. John with a 1-1. Paul's also feeling a 1-1, just like myself and Steve. Martin's given himself some options. First goal, 1-2. If we can't, 2-0, most likely 0-0. Yeah, throwing them all in there. And Chris is going for 6-0. We haven't got Haaland, though, but he's going for 6-0. So that's our match preview for Nottingham Forest. And because it's transfer deadline day, we're going to incorporate it and we're going to continue with the stream and have an extended stream. So there's a couple of things that I need to do, and there's a couple of things that you guys in the chat need to do. So I need you to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I need you to hit the like button. And whilst you do that, I've got 25 seconds to replace this studio with a transfer deadline studio. And those guys, John, Steve and Matt, are going to go and put their suits on as we turn attentions to transfer deadline day. Hit the like button, 25 seconds. Oh, look at that.
I thought you were going to put a yellow tie on or something.
Well, I didn't have time. Look, I've even changed the colour of the screen. Well, not the colour of the screen.
Wow.
The banner. There we go. Look, I've even changed the colour. There we go, guys. We're now into
production value is immense.
It's transfer deadline day, so you should all have hit the like button on this video, and we're going to start talking transfers until the end of this stream. On the bottom of the banner are the players that we've signed, and you'll also see Jack Stevens has signed today on a loan deal from Southampton. We've been here before, haven't we, Steve? And we're also potentially interested in Nathan Redmond. We'll get to them in a moment. Steve, the window so far, I will put an image on the screen at the moment. It's a lot of loans, a lot of frees, and some money spent on Senesi. But it was encouraging last night. It's just a shame that Scott Parker wasn't encouraged with this team and felt that he could take it a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to go talk about last night for a little bit again, but I personally think last night was absolutely massive for the club as a whole, for the fan base, for the players. Just to show that some of those statements that guy, Parker made, that they're not. That's not entirely true. They can compete in this division with a couple more bodies, and I don't necessarily think that much we've brought in is too much of an upgrade. To be honest, I think they're roughly the same level of players. I mean, if you can get good grafting players that are going to, gel and work as a unit, listen to the coach, be coached, and become better players, we can compete at this level. We've got far more players with Premier League experience than we had last time. So to say they weren't good enough, I think, or they needed help, or however he phrased it, I think it was a bit wrong. But, we showed last night, and with a couple, a guy like Cooper in there, who's a good motivator. We've seen it with the under-23s. Tommy Elphick, what captain he was for us. He can obviously motivate players. And I thought Gary O'Neill, when he spoke, was a breath of fresh air last night. I thought, it's actually nice to listen to someone who's not looking at the floor. He's coherent in what he's saying. He doesn't say players what want to do this and what want to do that. And, I just found him quite a lot more engaging than Parker. And if the players feel like that as well, I think it's only the right choice in the end of the day. And I just think it's really raised his spirits last night massively.
We are going to focus on the main part of the squad. I know there's some youth players that have gone out. I think Genesini's gone out today.
He's gone on loan, yeah.
But we're going to focus on the main players. We know that Gavin Kilkenny's gone out on loan to Stoke City. We know that Zeno Rossi left to go to Cambridge. But Matt, let's just look at the incomings here that I've got on the screen. And when you look at Ryan Fredericks, Joe Rothwell, we'll come to Jack Stevens in a bit, but Senesi, Tavernier, Neto. We've seen all of them now in action, even Ryan Fredericks last night. I mean, if you blinked, you missed him, but he came on the pitch. When you look at those players before anyone we've just recently signed, I mean, how are you feeling that window's gone yourself?
Well, the problem I've got with it is, and I don't like to harp back, but in January I said that we're not running the football club in a particularly sustainable way, because what Scott Parker's doing here is he's signing 7 players in the August window. Then I've decided that they're not good enough, but some of them on 2-3 year contracts. So get me another 7 in January. Roll another 7 in, because these I'm not sure about a few of these. But the other 7 that he brought in were to get us up from the Championship, because the board clearly said we're in a great position now. We can't throw it away. We've got to go up at all costs, because Max Deming, that's me, and I want my money back at some point. So throw a bit of money at it, get us up at all costs. So Parker went and did that. But again, he signed Championship standard players in the main, and some of them on 2 or 3 year contracts. So then when we get to the Premier League, he's then saying, I need another 7 or 8 players again. And Deming's saying to him, Scott, you've signed 15 players or whatever it is. Some of these are on 2-3 year contracts. What are you doing? Are you telling me they're not good enough for the Premier League? Well, no, they're not. They got us up though, didn't they? And that is an unsustainable way to run a football club like AFC Bournemouth, when you've got a vicious circle that we're in. 11,000 stadium, no training ground built yet, so no infrastructure in the background. And we can't improve on that, because we've got to invest on the pitch to stay in the Premier League. So we have to make a choice at some point. The owner has to say, well, what do we do here then? Do we build for the future, try and build ourselves up as a football club, build a bigger fan base, build a better stadium, build a training ground, build infrastructure behind the scenes? Or do I just continue to throw money at the problem when we get and allow Scott Parker to moan and complain and say we haven't got enough, and sign 8 players every window, albeit some of them on loan, but not a sustainable way to run a football club like ours? And that's the problem I've got with it. So this window has not been a particularly great one. I accept that. It's not been good enough. And some of the players we've signed, you think, are they Premier League quality players? Can they make the step up, or is it what we need? some of the players we've signed is questionable. But we are where we are. We're the smallest football club in the Premier League. It is unsustainable, I think, in its current form, for Max Demin to continue running it on his own. He needs help. I don't know about Scott Parker needs help, but Max Demin, he either needs to sell up to somebody with a lot deeper pockets, or he needs further investment to come into the football club, because we can't carry on as a Premier League club in the situation we're in. 10,000 crowds, no training ground built, a phased building of the training ground, and then expect to spend millions and millions in transfer windows each summer to try and tread water, to try and scrape survival every season. It's just not sustainable. It's not feasible. So unfortunately, that's where we're at as a football club. We're going to have to live with it. Do we become a yo-yo club? Is that the worst position in the world to be? I mean, if somebody had told me that 10 years ago, we'd be yo-yoing between the Championship and the Premier League, I'd have thought they drunk 3 pints of vodka. You'd have taken that in a heartbeat. But is that really what we want to become? I think we have to really look at our football club and decide from the top where we want to be and what we want to do as a football club.
I'll tell you what we'll do, guys, is we will sort of go through each signing, but we'll have to limit our thoughts and our comments to maybe a minute or two. Let's start with today's signing, John, and that's Jack Stephens. We sort of got wind of it yesterday. He was in the stadium watching the game versus Wolves. This is a guy from Southampton. John, I am pushing a little bit of blame on Shane Long here. I think there's a bit of Agent Long going on. But Jack Stephens is not someone that's getting in a Southampton team. I'm going to come to Steve in a moment because he has a bit of a story about pre-season and Jack Stephens. But how are you feeling about this deal? Because I wanted a centre back that's maybe an upgrade on what we've got. And the way Mepham performed last night, although everyone knows my thinking on him, I don't see him being any better I don't see him knocking Mepham out of the team.
Probably not. I think he's just another body in the door, to be honest. And really, the fact of the matter is, if we're going to stick with a back four from now on, did we definitely need another centre back? Because if James Hill goes out on loan, which from the sounds of things, Coventry are rumoured to be in to bring James Hill on loan, which I think would be a fantastic deal to get him some experience. I guess 5 centre backs is what is probably the most you could really want in a squad. Certainly 4, I think, is enough, unless obviously if you get 2 or 3 injuries, any team's going to suffer. But I think Mepham is still unfairly tarnished by a number of fans because of his mess up against Brentford in the playoff semi-final. But then he's had a mistake in him before. Lloyd Kelly almost cost us a point last night, very, very significantly. He's definitely had mistakes in him. Any centre-back you bring in that's going to fit into a lower-end Premier League squad has made mistakes in the past. Unfortunately, Jack Stephens does have a bit more of a reputation of being a little bit error-prone. You showed me who scored negatives on him. Is one of his negatives is that he is error-prone. Yeah, look, for me, it's just another body in the door, because I think Mepham's good enough to play in this squad, in this team. I always think he has been good enough. People make mistakes. You've just got to get over it. And I think he's still actually not that old. He's still 24, I believe, Mepham. Yeah. Which, considering how long he's been about as a player, you forget how young he still is. So I think his mentality is definitely improved. So yeah, it's just another body in the door for me. It's not that exciting in a signing at all for me, but he's played a lot of Premier League games, so it's definitely something.
Sammy says, my friend who's a Saints fan said he always gives 100%, and Bournemouth fans will love that. Talking of James Hill, Chris Temple did tweet that he might be going on loan to Coventry City, but then I think he counter-tweeted saying that looks unlikely now. So we'll monitor that one. And if you are in the chat, keeping an eye on Sky Sports News or your phone, and something drops, be honest with us, but do let us know, and then we'll just verify it, and then we'll talk about it. Steve, Jack Stephens, you saw him in pre-season. It does feel a bit... I can see it's an easy option to grab someone from Southampton. it's just the sort of market we're playing in, and this is why Parker walked away. Look, I'm disappointed in Parker because I felt he didn't have the ability to train any of these or improve them. He gave up. But he's obviously left because of this, because we're going into this type of market and taking fringe players from Southampton.
Yeah, I mean, he quite clearly wanted ready-made players, and didn't think he had the time to coach and bring on players. And I kind of get there's a case for that, I suppose. But at the end of the day, if that's what the board of directors have told you, this is what you've got to play with. After you've spent, like Matt said, copious amounts of cash in the championship trying to get us up, this is the pool you're fishing from. Just get on with it. You know, you're a professional manager and do your job. Don't sit there and come out. Yeah, let's move on. Anyway, Jack Stevens. Yes, I've seen him at the Wycombe game, which I thought was played at Brockenhurst, and it was bit of a strange sighting, I thought, at the time, but it's come to fruition now that we've signed him. So maybe we had been courting him for a little while. And he seemed to be, there's Jay-Z and Jaden Anthony were also at that game. And there was a bit of conversation going on between them. Will Dennis was there. So I don't know if they're circles and they know each other slightly, or from what, I don't know what from, but yeah, it seems like it makes sense now why he might have been there, sort of, he was courting us, you know, or whatever it was. But the thing about him is there's a reason he's not playing at Saints. And like John said, it's a body through the door who has Premier League experience. That's the big plus he's got. He does give 100%. But as we've said, and I work with a couple of Saints fans, and they've just said, you know, he's good ball playing, centre back. It's let's not go down that road, Tiggs. Yeah, he's a good ball playing centre back, good with both feet. He likes to come out. He's comfortable, but he has this error in him, and it just, you know, it's not an upgrade on anything. So it's like John said, it's a body through the door. It's a backup player, or, you know, if we get any injuries, which is the other thing. So yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's nothing to shout about, and we've done it before. Dan Seaborn, didn't we, a few years back in the lower leagues? We got him on loan from Saints for a season. Didn't really do much for us, and I just see this as the same one. It kind of like all the ones we get from Saints, and they come along, don't really do a lot, pick up a wage, and go back again.
Don't forget Arthur Borage.
Yeah, okay. It's the other exception.
He's the exception.
Also, Morgan's just throwing it in now. I'm getting it out there before the chat moves up. Unsure if you mentioned Sadie loan move. We'll have to check on that one as well. Now, something that we do need to shout about is a legend from back of the net. He's Fan Cam's presenter. He's kindly put a super sticker, 99p, like buy me an ice cream at Bournemouth Pier. Is Mr.
He said about me drinking at Wycombe. I think he's on the booze now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tiggs. Obviously, back of the net, the home of AFC Bournemouth fan channel on YouTube. They've gone past 8,000. Go and subscribe to them. You must be anyway. If you're not subscribed to Back of the Net, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We can't be awake right now. So, Matt, Jack Stevens, where does this leave Marcos Senesi, who's had a few difficult days out in the English game? What I was happy to see when Jack Stevens signed is I rung Steve, or I messaged Steve and went, what foot is he? Right-footed. At least he's right-footed, Matt. Yeah. We got a balanced centre-backs if he plays alongside Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah, and that's all you can say, really. It offers us balance in the centre of that defence again, because he's right-footed, but it also, I think what it's doing as well is it's getting us another body in there, like both the boys have said. When we want to play a back three, we've got that extra defender in the squad, but also it's buying Senesi time, isn't it? Because he's just come to the Premier League, and it's going to take time for him to adapt to the nature of it, because it's a world away from what he's the league that he's come from playing in. So I think what they thought is, let's bring Jack Stevens in. He's got Premier League experience at least. And like Steve has said, and like I've touched on previous, this is the pool at the moment that we're now fishing in. Unfortunately, this is where we are as a football club on our journey at the moment. What happens in the future, who knows? But it's probably about as good a signing at centre half as we could expect to make on a free transfer or a season-long loan, isn't it?
I think he's been brought in to pep talk to the rest of the team about what a 9-0's like.
Yeah, well, he's got enough experience in that, hasn't he? Yeah, and a couple of own goals to boot. But
yeah,
he's got Premier League experience. He's a centre half. He's on a season-long loan. There's no real fit, or whatever the fee is involved is going to be minimal. His wages, I don't know if Southampton. It's about as good as we could have got. I mean, we've been linked with Nathan Redmond. I don't know if you're going to talk about that in a minute, Kirk.
Yeah,
well, you say it's as good as we could have got. I don't see why we couldn't have been going after players like Willy Bolly. It wasn't a massive amount of money from Wolves.
I don't think we can compete with Nottingham Forest, Steve, on that level.
Why not?
I don't think we can. They're a bigger football club than they're obviously going for it, aren't they? Their owners have bought into it and they've got more resource. I just don't think we can compete with them.
I'd be very confident they're offering higher wages than we could. I'd be very 100%. Confident that their wage structure is being blown away at the moment. So we'll see what happens over there.
Will has said that we might go back in for Phillips in January once Liverpool have bodies back in. We may well do. Paul's also joining. Evening, guys. Can anyone see us? Nathan Redmond deal. We'll come back to Nathan Redmond in a minute. Right. Play a little game, guys. Jack Stevens. Literally, I just want to know if you think this is a transfer hit, a miss, or undecided. Now, if you're going to go for a transfer hit, it's because it's a good deal for the club, a good deal for the player. There's no explaining of it. You could just literally go transfer hit for the club, for the player. You think it's a good deal. If you think it's not a very good deal and it's just a waste of money, it's a transfer miss. If you're just sitting on the fence, it's undecided. Play along in the chat. John, Jack Stevens, is this a transfer hit, miss, or are you undecided?
I think I'll be undecided until I find out how much he plays. Because if he barely ever plays, then it'll be a miss. If he pretty much never plays, it'll be a miss. But if he comes on now and again, has a half decent impact, then it's a hit. It's not going to be a significant hit on the wages. There won't be at least I haven't heard that there's any loan fee. I can't imagine why Saints would be asking for one. So it's just a sensible addition to bring someone into the squad, and that is one of the things where it just depends on how he does as to whether it's a hit or a miss. It's just very middle of the road at the moment.
Steve, has he covered all bases in this game that I'm trying to play? So where you're sitting right now in your lovely new extension, is this deal a transfer hit, a miss, or are you undecided?
I'm going to have to concur with John. It is one of those. It's a sensible, not exciting one. It fills a gap. It's Premier League experience. It's probably not cost us a lot. And like John said, if he plays, he could be a hit. I mean, it all depends on what injuries we pick up, how the season pans out for us, whether he gets game time or not. If he does, I think he's quite capable of doing a job, and it could go either way.
Come on in, Matt. Not too much of an explanation. You're sitting there right now. Is it a transfer hit, a miss, or undecided?
For me, it's a hit because we haven't really risked anything on this. He's got Premier League experience. It's not a massive fee. He's a central defender, so it's ticking a lot of boxes. But also, what it is ticking, just very quickly, Kirk, because we've been critical of Scott Parker for not wanting to develop players. Well, we've got an opportunity here with Jack Stevens. If somebody works with him and actually develops the lad, we could sign him permanently at the end of the season. So this is where we're at. We need to have a manager in place and an ethos in the club of bringing these sort of players in, bedding them in with us and developing them. So for me, it's a hit.
I thought that.
What's the point in him developing him, but he's going to be going back to Saints?
Yeah, if he might stay. He might stay beyond the season. Saints obviously doesn't send out a great message that Southampton has sent him out on loan.
It all depends on who we bring in as a manager as well.
Yeah, of course it does.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'll let him have it.
Undecided. I'm going undecided. I'm going to give Jack Stevens the benefit of the doubt. Undecided. Not convinced. Doesn't excite me. That's that one. And we'll go through the rest of the players and you can get involved as we continue on this stream. Let's talk about it then. They're bringing it up in the chat. We are being linked with Nathan Redmond. I think I'd take the Redmond of 3 years ago, stuck one away in the FA Cup against us. Not sure I'd take the Redmond of now, John. There's another reason why he's not getting in the Southampton team. Now, come on. At the start of the season, we were putting Southampton below us in the tier list. Now we want their side players.
Yeah, but Southampton have looked better than we have so far this season, admittedly. So, I totally agree that it's, as any fan of any club is going to hear a player that basically has barely played in the last few seasons and certainly hasn't really set anything alight, you're kind of going, oh, well, this is great. But I think it'd be another case of getting decent Premier League experience through the door. I do find this whole phrase, getting Premier League experience in the squad, to be rather tiresome, particularly because of how much Scott Parker was banging on about it, despite the fact that he's got so much Premier League experience in the squad already. Phil Billing, Lewis Cook, Jefferson Lerma, Adam Smith, Solanke's got plenty of it. You can keep going through the first 11 and more, and they've all played plenty of games in the Premier League. So that is a moot point personally. But I think the one complaint that I think certainly a few people on this channel have brought up is the lack of pace up front. I don't know how much Redmond's still got in his legs because of his injuries, but he has actually been playing more as a striker over the last sort of half a decade than he has as a winger. I don't think he would necessarily fit in a 4-4-2 on the wings. I think he plays as one of the two up front. And he would be something different to what we have. In a way, I think maybe he'd be quite similar to Jamal Lowe, but I certainly would rate Redmond over Lowe, although I don't have anything against Jamal Lowe, but I certainly would rate Redmond higher than him. It's another half decent signing, and in the way that it's being talked about is that we literally can't get another loan from Southampton now. It's not possible. So we either buy him, which will be for a very small fee, or we convince Southampton to terminate his contract, in which case we get him on a free. So it's another very low risk signing. And one that can add something to the squad that we don't necessarily have at the moment. I think we've got something close, but it's I'm not against the signing. I think, yes, it's not but you don't want to sign players that are past their best, but he certainly could have an impact. I'd bet on Redmond having a better impact in the team than Stevens would.
For sure. Steve, it's going to come down to money, though. Chris Temple says it's almost like Redmond's got to get himself out of his contract. On his day, he's a good player, was a good player. Haven't seen much of him in the last few seasons, but I've seen him enough previously to know that he can go missing in games as well. And that's my concern. And I know Mr. Tiggs is talking about Dembele. I mean, I'm not saying Dembele can cut it in the Premier League, but for me, he's the one that's got that speed to go and get close to Dom when we counter-attack. And I'm not sure Nathan Redmond can do 50 yards in 4 seconds.
Well, I don't know. He's not past it, Redmond. Did someone just put up there? He's still only 28.
Yeah, I just saw. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe that. I thought he was older than that. But he has, like John said, he's had a lot of injuries. It must have taken a toll on his body somewhat. However, I'll hark back to, I work with quite a few Saints fans, and that word inconsistency comes up a lot when talking about Redmond. One day he's unplayable, the best player you've ever seen on the park, and then 3-4 games on the trot, he hardly does anything. That's for me, it's not the type of player I want to see at the club. I don't want. It's almost a bit too luxury, and I don't know if there's an attitude issue there as well, or if it's just down to injuries that he doesn't get in the current squad, current starting 11 for Saints. Because on his day, he's a great player. I remember him scoring some wonder goals, get some of the top teams in Premier League for Norwich as well. So he's got it in his locker. It's just whether he can produce it on a regular basis and whether he's going to be, like John said, whether the finances is going to become a stumbling point. Because they obviously want to get him off the wage bill, because I've heard he's quite a high earner. So I'm not feeling this one personally. I think it will be a bad choice personally.
Yeah, I'm in that boat, Matt. I think he's got it in him to score a worldie, as I said. But I mean, what are we going to splash on him to get him through the door? I know he's probably not going to cost us a transfer fee, but he's not going to take peanuts, is he? And I don't know. I'm looking at the likes of Daniel James today. That obviously we're not in that pot. Well, we were apparently. We were asking about Dan James, but we can't compete with the money. But that's the player. That's the speed. That's what we needed last night. And I just can't see it in Redmond. I mean, I agree with Steve. I thought he was older than 28, but I just think he's going to have off days more than he's probably going to have good days.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see, because now Parker's obviously gone. Will Dembele actually? It's not been confirmed that he's gone out the door yet, is it? I mean, does the current sort of management team and coaching team, are they now saying, well, hang on a minute, we've got a player that we can work with here. We've got a player that's got pace, can unlock defences, can run at fullbacks. We haven't got that. We haven't got that natural player. And let's not forget that hopefully, touch wood, we're going to get David Brooks back within the next couple of months, and who knows how he'll come back. We just don't know. But I think Redmond would be a risk. I take on board. I was really torn when the two of you were talking. I was thinking, in some ways, it'd be good because we need someone else up top. He's got pace. He's got Premier League experience. So again, he's ticking boxes. But part of me is thinking, is he that much of an upgrade on the likes of Jamal?
What side does he play on mostly?
I think
he's left. If he plays a winger, he's left mostly. Right. But he's played more up front than he has on the wing in his last 50 games.
So if he's on the left, then is that sort of, we comparing him with the likes of Tavernier? Because I would think, having Tavernier
he's a different player to Tavernier.
I'd be comparing him more to Dembele. As a right-footed winger, but again, a different type.
I suppose Tav's gone more central, hasn't he, of late in his play?
He swapped sides as well.
You question his consistency and his hunger, wouldn't you, Redmond? Whereas Dembele surely will be chomping at the bit to prove a point. Obviously, a bit younger, I think, than Redmond. So, is it an upgrade on Dembele? Do we spend all that money on his wages for the sake of it, or are we just bringing bodies in here for the sake of wanting to sign someone because we're short in a couple of departments? It's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because, like, I think Paul Wright and Paul Spicer said on the chat, this is, if we're not going to spend any money, these are the types of players that we're going to be looking at. We've not. It's Hobson's choice, isn't it?
I do wonder, John. I mean, I believe that the coaching team, Parker, didn't think that Dembele could cut it at this level. I think we got Dembele to give us a championship push. And if we didn't get relegated, we had a very good player in the championship. That's how I'm viewing the whole Dembele situation. But if we let go of Dembele, we know that Redmond's going to cost us some sort of chunky money. Then Brereton Diaz, is there not a deal to be done there? I don't know what he's on at Blackburn. But for me, if we're looking at Redmond, I'd rather push the deal towards Diaz. And I can't imagine there's much more in it. I know there's different finances to play with, but
I mean, Blackburn are asking for a decent chunk of money for Brereton Diaz. I mean, I don't think we did ever put in a bid, but I know I heard rumours about a £15 million bid being rejected from somebody for Brereton Diaz. So, it's like I don't think we could really got too much more to go for that sizable kind of wage. Just as a follow up on Dembele, from what I saw, because I think Tiggs put out that he'd seen tweets about the fact that he's just not going to be included in the 25-man squad regardless. But then I've seen a follow up from Chris Temple saying, well, actually, if it's a different player that happens to go, because there are because there's been plenty of interest in Marcondes, although he does want to stick around. I don't know whether if Jamal Lowe went, then Dembele takes his place in the 25-man squad. But we are, we're creaking at the seams in terms of we literally can't fit another person into our squad at the moment. So because we don't have anyone that's under 21 that doesn't need to be registered really. So I think I agree that really, if the choice is sell Dembele and bring in Redmond or keep Dembele, I'd rather keep Dembele. I think because that could well be the choice, and I really don't see why you wouldn't keep hold of the younger, faster, trickier player that's already in our squad. That's also not going to cost as many wages as Redmond. And the thing is, I do think that there's been a mystique that's built around Dembele because he because there's been all this talk about him being an option and him being the player. We get these now and again. A player that basically, because he doesn't play, his value increases to the fan base. Like, because really, when he came on in the Championship, okay, he scored a couple of goals. I mean, the first one against Blackpool, it's debatable whether they're even meant to put it into the bottom right-hand corner, or whether it was a mishit and it went well. But he had the occasional point where he dribbled past a player or he pulled off a nice bit of skill and did something good. But those came around very infrequently, even when he was playing. And he didn't even play that much. He wasn't given the chances very much in the Championship by Parker. And it's difficult to know whether he could really do anything or whether he'd be amazing in the Premier League, because we barely saw anything of him in the Championship. So that's where I think you have to, at least in some way, look at what the coaches and what the club are thinking about in terms of Dembele. Has there been a more consistent agreement that he's not necessarily good enough, and maybe as fans we just want him to be good enough? Or, you know, is a different manager going to come in and go, I can improve him, I can get the best out of him, he can definitely do something. Let's be fair. Dembele, there is no one in the squad like Dembele that we've got. There's no one that's quite like him. And that's where I think we are going to be disappointed if he does move on, because he does have that mystique of being a different kind of player to what we've got. And that's something that we could definitely use, particularly when we're trying to be more counter-attacking. And we don't really have that lightning quick pace to make the most of those counter-attacks at the moment.
Right. Let's get back to our little game then. Let's look at the other signings that we've made this season. Please do keep us up to date with transfers. We're normally used to a busy transfer deadline, guys, but it's just Jack Stevens at the moment and the potential Nathan Redmond. But last night, Neto, I was shocked. When those team lineups came out, Steve, I was like, what? Like, Travers had no blame on that 9-0. Like, he stopped it being 12. Nothing against Neto, by the way. I've got nothing wrong with the sign-in. But it's more that don't take Travs out now. Look, it was justified in the end from Gary O'Neill. He kept a clean sheet because Lloyd Kelly was on the line. But let's talk about Neto. And now, how balanced is this for Travers? I mean, are they going to share the responsibility? Talk about Neto, get your thoughts in the chat and we'll do the hit, miss or undecided. But yeah, your thoughts on last night when Neto was given them number one top.
I was surprised, but in the same breath, I wasn't surprised if you see what I mean, because he's just come on the bash. You know, the guy's shipped 16 goals or something, isn't it, in 3 games? And
would Neto
I think
have done the same thing?
That's not the debate. He hasn't done that, and Travers has, and we don't know what his mental state was in that Liverpool game. I'm not being funny, but after the 3rd goal went in, Travers looked destroyed, in my opinion. It carried on, and you say he wasn't to blame for every goal. Well, there was that goal that looped up in the air, which he just should have come and claimed. Firmino just stole in, and whilst him and Travers were looking at each other. And I just think he probably needed taking out the firing line for his own good. Still very young, don't forget. He's still only 20. Is it 22 he is?
23.
And 23. So he's passionate, and you could see it was really getting to him at Liverpool. And, you know, you don't want to be scooping the ball out the back of your net 9 times, no matter who you're playing. So I feel sorry for him, because I don't think, you know, the other 8 goals were much to do with him. But equally, he looked a defeated goalkeeper. He looked really down after that Liverpool game. So I wasn't surprised to see Neto. Equally, I think it's a bit harsh. Neto, on the other hand, best Neto on the park last night. He didn't really have much to do, did he? He had a bit of a dodgy bit. His distribution at one point, you know, it was a bit hit and miss. He likes to come and punch, I've noticed, rather than coming and gathering the ball. Difficult one. I don't think we said about Wolves, they didn't really put much of in the shots column on us. Everything he did, you would have said, you know, Travers would have done equally as well. I don't think the goalkeepers would have made much of a difference last night. I just think purely Travers was taken out to let him, you know, let his mind get recuperate after that bashing. It's difficult. I think Neto will keep his place, but I'd like to see it when he's a bit more tested than he was last night.
Right, I'm going to come to you first, Matt. My friend did tell me, actually, he's watched a lot of league football. When we signed him, he said he's a good goalkeeper. He just don't catch a lot. And obviously, watching him last night, he likes to punch almost everything. But he did well last night. Right, Matt, is this deal? You've seen him in action now. Is it a hit, a miss, or undecided?
Neto, undecided at the moment.
Ooh. Now I want to know why.
I think Steve said this before, which I completely agree with. I'm not sure. I mean, Travers, for me, player of the season last season. No reason to drop him. No reason to drop him last night, I don't think. I know it was difficult to sign a quality backup keeper, and we're fishing from a certain pool when you're asking a player to sit on the bench. But Neto is obviously on a big salary. He's come from Barcelona. It's yet to prove himself. I didn't really know much about him until he signed, so it has to be undecided for me because until he proves himself.
Hit, miss, or undecided, John, for Neto?
Hit, miss, or undecided. I will. For me, it's a hit. I think before he even played, I think it was a hit for me, just because I think when you can bring in someone that's deemed to be good enough to play for 4 years at Juventus, 3 years at Barcelona, 3 years at Villarreal.
I thought it was Valencia.
Valencia,
yeah.
There we go. Another big Spanish side. I think you bring that in on a free transfer, bearing in mind that Barcelona cancelled his contract so that we could sign him on a free. Only brought him in for a year, so there's no risk in the deal for us, apart from obviously paying his wages. I think it was inevitable he'd come in for Travers at some point. I think admittedly, I rate Travers very highly, but I think that the weakness in Travers' game, for me, is his mid to long range passing. I think it needs a hell of a lot of work, his mid range passing in particular. And Neto, I thought his distribution was brilliant. He made that one very bad ground pass. That was the one that almost set them up for a counter for us. That was the one ground pass he messed up. He got a lot of really nice mid-range passing into Solanke, and then when Solanke just drifted into space in the midfield, took it down on his chest, and we moved forward quite quickly. I was quite impressed. I thought his distribution was far better than Travers has often shown his to be. Admittedly, Travers has got a lot better. Don't get me wrong; he's better than he used to be. But I think Travers needed to be taken out of the firing line. You can't as a 23-year-old to suffer that 9-goal and believe me, there were 2 goals out of those that was Travers's fault. That's still humiliating. And it's not an easy thing to just recover from. We saw against admittedly it was 2 years ago, but he made that one mistake against He made that mistake in the first game against Blackburn, and he looked incredibly nervous after sort of letting that spill through his hands. And we obviously went on to just about win that one 3-2. Look, I think Travers will hopefully get the chance to come back into the side. Later on in the season, but I certainly see Neto. I don't see Neto getting dropped for the Forest game, and we'll see what happens for the rest. But yes, we could find out he's not as good a shot stopper as we'd like him to be. But I think so far, I think I'm pleased with what he's done.
Let's move on to Marcus Tavernier, and we spent money on this guy. 10 million and a little bit on add-ons, I think. And when I spoke to the Borough podcast, my God, they absolutely loved him. They said, what you're going to get is a player with energy. He won't stop running. He'll play any position. He'll play in goal if you ask him to play in goal. I think we saw that last night. What they did say to me, though, is that he's got work to do in the final third at times. He has got a good finish on him, but he frustrates as well. Although they did say if they had a better striker, they reckon he would have got more assists. I am seeing that, though. I'm seeing a player that's got energy. I'm seeing a player that wants to get on the ball. What I saw last night, Steve, was someone that holds on to it just a little bit too long. And then he's not picking out Dom. He's just putting it in. And good players that find those assists, and I'm gonna go mad here. I'm gonna go De Bruyne, right? I know it's worlds away from us, but he finds someone. He plays through lines where Tavernier's just got that technique. He's got a good technique, but he's just putting it in the box. He's not thinking that Dom's going to make 3-yard yards to the right or, to the left and think, where's Dom going to end up in his positioning? And the same with Christie. We're not talking about Christie, but it's the same again. So I do like Tavernier, but there is a lot of work to do there in getting assists and goals out of him.
I think the caveat to that is that he's only been in the door 5 minutes, and he can't have struck up many partnerships. And there's not to say that he, sit half a dozen games down the line, him and Dom start hitting it off, or there creates, we get a bit of a relationship going there. He's exciting. I like that. He's good on the ball. He's got pace, which is one thing we keep going on about, is that we haven't got great amount of. I thought he was excellent last night. Not necessarily my man of the match, but I thought he was excellent. And I thought the other thing he brings is when we went to a 5 last night, he slotted into that left wing back position, and I thought he was going to have his work cut out with Traore. And do you know what? He did a really good job on that guy. I thought it was actually very clever, astute of Gary O'Neill, because he basically matched him with pace. And I don't think he really gave him a sniff. Didn't let him affect the game much at all. So I really think this is a hit for us. I think he is a bit of a rough diamond. He does need a bit of polishing. But yeah, I'm excited to see what we can get from him.
Maybe confidence, Matt. When he hits that confidence, goals will start going in, assists will start going in. But we've got a player here on a long-term contract that's not going to lose value. If we end up back in the Championship, very, very comfortable in that league. And all the signs are good for Marcus Tavernier. Do let us know your hit, miss, or undecided, but it's surely going to be an easy answer for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing also that I would add to what everybody said so far is that is versatility. He's got extreme versatility. He can be utilised in a number of different positions, which could be crucial for us, not just this season, but moving forward. He's got passion. He's got commitment. He's got ability as well. The lad, and if we're talking about spending 10 million on the player, I think it could be a really sound investment. Work to do. Again, you've got to get a manager and a coach that's going to work with him to improve him. That's going to be the key. But absolutely, it's a hit, this one, at the moment.
It's a hit for Matt. John, we've done a lot of transfer shows. You may have done this already. I'm trying to remember if we did Marcus Tavernier and hit, miss, or undecided for you.
Oh yeah, the biggest hit of the season, without a doubt. I mean, I think he impressed against Villa, and then when I saw him in the flesh, even against City, he was probably the shining light in not a very good game against City. And I within 2 games, I'm like, I think he'll probably be in the Prem next year, regardless. I think he really has shown not just an ability to step up to the Premier League, but the talent and the potential to go way higher. I think he's got so much talent, and he works so hard. He's a fantastic dribbler. But you're right. I think he has at times held onto the ball too long, and it wasn't just against Wolves that we've seen that. I think it was probably within about a minute he got a chance to play a pass. He ended up with the ball in the far corner in our attacking right sort of quarter, and just like 3 times didn't quite play a pass and ended up losing the ball. Yeah, I think with more partnerships, with more time, with a manager coming in and hopefully working with him and giving him some giving him hints, tips, and ways to improve, then yeah, I think he could be fantastic. It's not a surprise at all that he has started every game we've played so far, and he's done so in about 3 different positions. Yeah. So I think he will be one of the shining lights of our season.
Moving on, interesting, Steve. Thoughts on Ryan Fredericks? This was a Scott Parker signing. Surely this was a Scott Parker signing. Came on yesterday, and I thought, okay, came on ahead of Adam Smith. That's fine, because we were asking for pace all night. Was bright for about 45 seconds. Then I completely forgot he was on the pitch to the end. I don't know if it's just me. Didn't do anything wrong, but yeah, I just didn't see enough of him. But he's been out since pre-season with an injury. I think you saw him in the airport. I don't know if you kicked him on the way in or whatever, but he was injured. And at the end of the day, there's more to come. And he's versatile as well. So he can play it right back. Look, he came on as a right wing back, whatever you want to call it, last night when we changed formation. But this was Scott Parker signing. What's he thinking?
Yeah, it's a good question, really, because and it's a difficult one to judge because we've not seen hide nor hair of him, really. I've seen glimpses of him. What I saw of him last night, I know what you mean by he came on and Smudger got pushed inside and he sort of took the wing back position. And I don't know if it's his injury. What I noticed about him, he wasn't in the face of the winger very quickly. He was very standoffish. And he gave, I think it was 8 Nori over there, and I can't remember the other guy on that side at that time, but he really gave them a lot of space. And I didn't like that personally. I don't know if it's just a bit standoffish. He didn't go and engage, didn't do anything for me. But then he only had 10 minutes at the end of the game. He was just a body to try and batten down the hatches with. So it's difficult to judge, as I said. Was it a bit of a job for the boys signing, as he knew Parker from West Ham and all that? Who knows? He's had his injury problems as well. Don't forget, he's got a long history of injuries. And like you said, I did bump into him in the airport, hobbling around with Owen Bevan, which was great after 5 minutes of being through the door with us. But he's cost us nothing. He's, again, I know John's going to hate it, but I'm going to say he's got Premier League experience. So I'm a bit undecided with it. He could be good. He's shown flashes in the Premier League before for West Ham. He scored. He likes to get forward. He's pacey, so it could. Yeah, I'm undecided. I need to see more of him, basically.
Matt, I know that when I spoke to some Fulham podcasters, they said he's exciting going forward, can't defend very well, and we were setting up Scott Parker to try and defend.
Yeah, I think he's been, when you talk about undecided, which is the answer I would give for this signing, I think he's been undecided all his career, hasn't he? If you speak to West Ham fans, West Ham's previous, anybody that's managed him, there's been question marks over him. He's promised a lot and delivered not always a great deal, to be honest. Massive potential, obviously. But what is he, 29 now? You'd have thought that he'd have hit the heights by now. So it's been an undecided all his career is the real question mark here, and we haven't seen anything of him, let's be honest, yet. So it can only be undecided, Kirk, can't it, really? Yeah.
And John, I think when I did this video, when I released it, I gave it as a hit, and I think I gave it as a hit because it was a free transfer, and if we end up in the Championship, a lot of these signings are building for 2 seasons potentially. That he was in there with Fulham and he should be capable of playing comfortably in the Championship. But I do agree with what I'm hearing. It's the same. It's his appearances have gone down season on season. He went to West Ham, played about 17, 18 games, and then it just went down and down, and then he wasn't featuring at all. And there were like 2 players ahead of him at West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said in, I think it was one of my Sparky Set videos, that I think that Parker did see Fredericks as the perfect right wing back for his back 5 system, because it doesn't put a huge amount of defensive pressure on him, because there'll always be a right centre back inside him to help with a bit of cover. And also, despite being 29 and having a lot of injuries, he's well known for having pretty lightning pace, and that's sort of what you want out of your right wing back. Admittedly, you'd probably want him to be a bit better defensively, but you certainly want someone that's going to be able to bomb up and down the wing, and is going to do so quickly. So I do think there's good potential in having him as a strong option on that side. But yeah, it is that injury record. I think if his injury, to be fair, if his injury record was better, he probably wouldn't be playing for us. He probably might have got, maybe, sod it, Notts Forest probably would have had him. Well, I shouldn't say Notts Forest, should I? Nottingham Forest would have had him. So yeah, I think I'm going to agree. It's probably undecided at this point. I think if he's able to get a decent number of games out, then I think he's a good option. More so right wing back, less so right back. I would say that some of Adam Smith's defensive performances has been worryingly shocking in a few moments in the first few games. So I I'm not going to say Fredericks is an upgrade on Smith most of the time, because I don't think he is. I still think Smith has got a lot of. Well, I think the age gap isn't actually that big, but and I think another manager may still prefer Smith, but I do think Fredericks is a good option as an attacking right wing back.
Disclaimer out there: he was already injured before Steve bumped into him at the airport. Just thought I'd put that out there. All right. Now, we were going to take this stream to about 8:30. We thought that there might be some news trickling through. It's been very quiet, guys. It's very unlike Bournemouth in the last 9 months. But we'll stay on for about another 15 or 20 minutes. If anything happens, do let us know, because we've got to talk about a couple more players and a couple more hit, miss, or undecided. Let's get straight into this one, because look, there's not going to be a lot to say, guys, but free transfer. Steve, Joe Rothwell. We went for this guy in January to try and get over the line into the Premier League. He then leaves Blackburn. He signs for us. It's competition for Philip Billing. We saw him a bit in pre-season. You know, I know you were there in Portugal and you may have seen him from afar as well. And it looks good. Technical, he looks good. I heard all of that anyway. Yeah. I've seen him a bit in the Championship. We're nearly in September and he's on the grass and we can't get him fit. It's frustrating, isn't it, when we sign players like this, albeit free transfers, when we need them to hit the ground running, because we're going to need every player to try and help us finish 17th.
Yeah, I guess we've not been blessed with the most amount of luck when it comes to injuries, have we, throughout the years? And this is just another example, because like you said, in pre-season, he showed some really good signs. I was quite impressed with him, actually. I thought he looked really comfortable on the ball. He dribbled well with the ball. He liked to drive forward. It was really somebody kind of player I've been crying out for a little bit. Someone to sort of try and go past players and create a bit of, create that bit of space for others, draw other defenders towards him and leave gaps for the likes of Dom and our other attacking players. And I don't know what really happened. I still don't even know what the problem he's got is, but it's just a real shame we haven't had him from the start. But I think if we can get him back up to what I saw prior to the season kicking off, I think he'll be a hit personally. If he can stay fit and on the grass properly and in the team, I think he'll be a hit.
It's a hit for Steve. Matt, I think technically he's a very good player, and he'll get the football team and he'll get Bournemouth up the pitch. We just need to get him fit. We need to get him running into the Premier League. It is competition for Billing, because we don't know if Billing can play a 38 Premier League season. We know he adapted to the Championship, but Joe Rothwell could add value to this team if we can get him on the pitch.
Yeah, massively. And the fact that, again, we haven't paid a transfer fee for him is a great bit of business by the club on the face of it. It is disappointing that we haven't seen him play yet. Massively disappointing. But we know what he's capable of, because we've seen it at Blackburn, albeit in the Championship. And I think he's another one in the Marcus Tavernier mould. I think he is capable of making that step up, and he's got huge potential. That much I can say, which, you can't really, you can say that about Ryan Fredericks, but he's almost coming the other way. So you question, his hunger or his desire a little bit, which is why I would put him in the undecided mould, because Joe Rothwell is the type of player that you could probably take with you back to the Championship and might stick with you and get you back up to the Premier League. Would Ryan Fredericks at 29, having not proved himself in the Premier League? Maybe not.
How old's Rothwell?
Rothwell's similar.
27, 20, something like that. So a couple of years younger, and it's in a position that is critical for us. We need somebody in that 10 role, or he can play, again, a bit of versatility. He can play in the 8 role as well. And I agree with Steve. I think once we do see him, this could be a big hit. I think he's got massive potential for us.
Something like 3 goals, 10 assists last season, John, in the Championship was his best return for Blackburn. And we know we're going to need to score as many goals as possible in this league. And we just got to find a way of getting him on the pitch at Dean Court. Yeah,
I think the stats were something like that. I from what I heard, and well, I suppose the interesting thing was, bearing in mind that as far as I was familiar with Rothwell, is that basically, seemingly, he's slowly moved up the pitch in terms of being a more defensive midfielder, central midfielder. Then he was number 8, and actually performed his best season in a more attacking role with Blackburn. And then in pre-season, we were playing him nominally as a left winger. So I was fascinated by sort of what was being planned in that. But obviously, the news was that he was getting forward really well. He was pressing really high along with Dom, putting in some really good challenges. I mean, he was basically the reason we won the ball back in, what was it, our first pre-season friendly, when we in Portugal, where we scored the first goal. I think we went, oh no, that was Sheffield Wednesday, was it? But it was the other one where we lost that one 2-1. And he helped with the pressing, getting Don the ball back to finish and put a 1-0 lead up early again in that game. I definitely want to see what he can do in this team. I think he's very much sort of would fit in a similar position to where Billing fits, as more of the sort of maybe sort of more 10-ish player, sort of fits in the same sort of spot that Billing did last season as one of the attacking number 8s, but the one that pushes higher rather than comes back more defensively like Lerma would. I'm still quite excited to see what he can do and see how we can help out the team. I think because I haven't seen anything of him, I'm still undecided, but I'm pretty sure he will be a hit. But at the moment, he's undecided. I'm just looking as well, just checking Twitter to see on what's going on. I've seen one tweet by someone that's saying Redmond is undergoing a medical, and apparently a deal of around 2 million has been agreed with Southampton. That's one rumor. That's literally one tweet I've seen on that.
So is that a permanent deal then? Is it?
That would be a permanent deal. Yeah, we couldn't loan him. We're loaning Stevens. We're not able to loan again from Southampton. Right. So it's impossible for us to get him on loan because we've got Stevens in. And the other interesting thing is because of the news of Batshuayi is apparently going to Nottingham Forest. Surridge is trending because apparently there are about 7 different Championship clubs that are interested in bringing him in on loan. And the Norwich, the Forest fan base seems relatively 50-50 on whether he should leave or not. Probably maybe a bit more 60-40 that they should drop him because Batshuayi is coming in. But it's an interesting one. I thought I'd put that one out there.
Not a shock. Swansea needs some goals.
Well,
it goes back to Swansea.
It's Borough and Cardiff, the first two names I've seen
interesting
come up that are interesting.
Right. Interesting one coming up then, guys. And this is our big centre-back money signing. Marcos Senesi. Get your thoughts in the chat. Do you think this is a hit, a miss, undecided? And I've got a centre-back in this stream. Steve, everyone raved about this signing. There was clubs.
Including myself.
How did Bournemouth get Marcos Senesi from Feyenoord? Was excited to see him start against Arsenal. 4 minutes in, Jesus absolutely owned him, and it went downhill from there. My understanding is as well, he didn't have a great game against Liverpool. Is this one of these moments where you've got to adapt to the English game and he needs time? Do we have the time for him to adapt to the English game?
No, but yes to your first part of that question. I think it's a big change for him. I feel a bit dopey really for this one because I've fallen foul to the YouTube videos and clips and all the rest of it, and I actually bought into him big time, thinking this guy's decent. You know, he looks. I'm not saying he can't be decent for us, but at the minute he doesn't. He's really not up to the speed of the Premier League. Even in the Norwich game, he struggled a bit. He excited me a lot. I liked what I saw of him. He's good. He's comfortable on the ball. He likes to get his challenges in quickly from what I saw. But he really has sort of looked out of sorts big time. But then there was the likes of, United were mentioned looking at him previously. And there were some other big clubs from Europe. John will probably know better than me. But I read somewhere that I think it was one of the Italian clubs was looking at him. Was it Napoli? Yeah. So he's obviously got something about him, but whether it's just his style, I don't know. Whether he's He's suited to the pace of the Premier League. I don't know. It's probably obviously a little bit different watching someone on a YouTube video of their best bits playing in the Dutch league, and you don't know who he's even playing against, whether it's bottom of the table clubs. But he looked good, you know. In any centre back who scores an overhead kick and gets goal of the month or whatever it was, a goal of the season, you think bloody hell. And he's also, I've been, you know, listening to Talk Sport quite a bit, and I forget his name, but the South American correspondent that does a lot, he was saying, you know, he's knocking on the door with the likes of Lisandro Martinez to get in the national squad. So you think this guy must be really half decent. But Tim Vickery, that's it. Thank you, John. Yeah. So it's yeah, it wasn't as great an introduction as I thought we'd get from him. But having said that, he's brand new in the country. He's never experienced Premier League football before, let alone English football. So maybe it's a slow burner, and I hope it's a hit. But I'm undecided at the moment.
Undecided at the moment. Hopefully it'll be a hit. Some good comments coming through. Abby said, thinks Senesi just needs time. He won't have become bad overnight.
No.
Hope he adapts. And Will also said he did get bullied by Jesus, which was a big concern. It is a concern, Matt, because he's come with the nickname the Gladiator. And I was expecting big things. And as I said, that Arsenal game, I was like, what? You've just been bundled by Jesus, but I'm hopeful. I really am hopeful. This signing did excite me, Matt.
Well, at the moment, he's playing like one of the gladiators from the TV show back in the early 90s.
Which one is he, though?
Yeah, certainly not Jet. Was it Jet?
Well, I hope not, because he'd need to undergo a change, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I was going to say. I think you're thinking of Wolf is the famous one.
Wolf, yeah. But, you know, for all of these signings, you know, we probably should be saying undecided because it's such early days, isn't it? You can't really make a call on it, which is why I've gone undecided with, you know, people like Neto and Ryan Fredericks so far, because we haven't seen enough of them to make any real firm decision on them. All we're judging it on is the actual business, the nature of the deal that's been done, what we've paid for in terms of a transfer fee, and what we see the future looking like for them, what their potential's like, and you know, how we see him fitting into the club. And I think that's one thing that you've already touched upon is, yes, he'll take time to adapt is the answer, but have we got time for him to adapt? Probably not. So it has to be that's it, Hunter.
He had the curtains, didn't he?
Yeah. I met him once. He opened our local leisure centre. I've got a signed picture of him somewhere.
On his bedroom wall.
Sorry,
as you were, Matt. You blame Heather. Heather was the one that brought the name into the chat.
You mix of all the celebrities, Steve, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I only had Roger Black, me. I had to make do with Chris Akabusi and Roger
Black.
I
met Chris Akabusi as well. We're divulging. Come on back. Bring it back.
I digress. So it's got to be an undecided at the moment because he's going to take time to settle. He's obviously got potential. We don't sign... You know, we've seen the YouTube videos, like Steve said, we've seen all the pundits' views and what have you. So it's an undecided at the moment.
Ben Brereton Diaz is not looking to be a Bournemouth player. He's in talks with Fulham and Everton, says Sky Sports. John, I know you're trying to ban me from mentioning Senesi's left foot, but it is a concern for me. I know it's the third time I've done it.
I'm trying to ban you from talking about it as well.
I know. Whilst we've got Lloyd Kelly in this football team, I don't like it. And do you know what? When I see him not starting in a back four, I'm like, it makes me dwell on it even more. I'm doing a disservice to Mepham there because Mepham's done well this season. But and you don't have to mention it. We've talked about it. But your thoughts on Marcos Senesi?
I can't believe you can't get over this, Kirk.
I
don't understand it. We've now got 2 left-footed centre-backs and 3 right-footed centre-backs. One of them plays on the left and one of the other play on the right. It's that simple.
Well, the thing is, though, I see Senesi coming in for 15 million quid as a starting defender. Lloyd Kelly's a starting defender. That's 2 left-footed defenders. And I had this conversation with Ahmed Shubal, and he said, I get where you're coming from, Kirk, because you're going to want to turn out and play down Jay-Z's side every time. It's more natural. But I know I'm diversing. I know it's boring. Steve's falling asleep. Marcos Senesi, can he become a great Bournemouth defender? Because we've had a lot of them in our time.
He definitely could. And I think I'm going to ignore the left foot for now. What I wanted to talk about was the fact that, look, there is a sort of phrase about there being the pace of the Premier League, and there is an element to that. The intensity of the Premier League is what's so special about it and why it gets all that action. But in terms of a game that is a basketball, as close to basketball as you're going to get, you just need to look at the Dutch league. The Dutch league is one of the fastest leagues in the world for how quickly the ball gets turned over and attacks progress. And if you're a good defender in that league, you're used to being up one-on-one with a defender very frequently, jockeying, dealing with a defender over long space, dealing with having 20 yards of a one-on-one and timing your tackling, getting in at the right time. You're not going up against strong forwards. I doubt there's anyone quite like Jesus in the Dutch league. The closest you would have got was Haller at Ajax, and obviously he's moved on, and certainly I wish him well with his diagnosis. But Senesi hasn't had to deal with a striker like that any way at all in his time in the Premier League. So he's got to get used to bulking up a bit. But also, PSV never had to sit in a line and be the wall that the attacks break on. He's never dealt with that before. That's an element of his game that he's going to have to improve. Bournemouth would like to be the more dominant side, but we just aren't. We're never going to be that this season. So Senesi is going to have a significant adaptation period, and working with Mepham, Kelly, and obviously coaches, I'm confident that he will improve. He definitely has shown to have the ability on the ball in the time in the Eredivisie, and if he's rated that highly as a defender by people that actually know what they're talking about, unlike us, then I would certainly back him to become a hit. At the moment, he is second choice to Kelly, and he will be second choice to Kelly for a little while unless Kelly gets injured. So yes, I think he can become a hit. At the moment, it's a wait and see, but I'm confident he will become a hit.
Tiggs, you know the answer to this because we had a conversation in the 1910 about it.
You see, he doesn't have a problem with this.
Feels more natural to me. We've seen it for years. I feel less comfortable with two left-footed defenders. Look, I know 90% of you probably watching this video now or watching it back will think I'm talking absolute bananas. But
how many people have we got to switch off since you've been talking about this?
See what happens.
We've lost 5.
Let's just see when we get Senesi and Lloyd Kelly playing together, and let's just see how that turns out.
John, have you got a tumbleweed thing we could just put on?
Right. Marcos Senesi.
Not quite.
Okay. What we'll do is we will close out this stream very, very soon. We've gone on a little bit longer just to see if anything breaks. It looks like Nathan Redmond is dead in the water, according to someone who said Jacob Tanswell's tweeted that. If you've got any quick fire questions, we'll quickly fire them out. If you're new to Cherries Red Army, please subscribe. We've got lots more content coming your way. There's lots of content on the channel at the moment. We've got the match day vlog for Wolves last night. We've got the match reaction straight after the game. Me and John covered that. We've got Nottingham Forest coming up this weekend. We'll get a match reaction to that. And then we'll continue with the Premier League season when we know. You got a question, Steve?
Before we go, I just wanted to ask people their thoughts on the young lad at Newcastle. John will know who I mean.
Jacob Murphy.
No. The other lad he came on late as was on loan. Yes.
Elliot Anderson. Oh, right, yes.
Would you think there's any chance of him going back on it? No chance of us knocking on Eddie's door and going, throw us a bone.
Eddie loves him, mate. Eddie loves him. He's so close.
Yeah, but he was out on loan, wasn't he? And
yeah,
Bristol Rovers.
He's quite exactly. He's quite low down the leagues. Is he
incredibly highly rated at Newcastle.
I know that, but is he ready for the Premier League?
Stephen Dyer, because he lives up there.
Yeah, it'd be a bit of a move, wouldn't it? I don't think it'd be impossible, and I think if he doesn't get much time in the first 6 in the next few months, I wouldn't be bearing in mind obviously it's a shorter first half of the season given the World Cup. I don't think it'd be impossible for us to ask for maybe look at him in January,
because I can't see him playing very often.
He'll get 10 minutes here and there, and he'll play in the cups. But
We could give it a try. I'd be surprised, but
I do. Just before we go,
it's just the Eddie thing. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Just before we go, I did see this comment from Abby, and this is something that I hope does get sorted at some point. But it is a thing that, I mean, Lerma's in his last year of his deal, and I don't see him signing an extension, so he'll be gone for free. But Jay-Z and Anthony being on their last year, that is a bit concerning. And
there's a bit of rumour around Anthony as well, wasn't there? A couple of clubs looking at him.
Well, Jay-Z was apparently being scouted by a few top clubs last season. So, I mean, you know, I'd like that to be sorted.
I don't think anybody in the Premier League is going to take a risk on them at the moment. They're not proven Premier League players, are they? I can't see that happening at the moment.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me is that Jadon Anthony had a very good 45 minutes against Arsenal when he came off the bench and we changed formation.
But they're young, aren't they?
That they are young. And this was always the question for me with Jordan Zamora, is he had a brilliant season last season, but we didn't know what we would get from him this Premier League season. I'm a big fan of Jordan Zamora, but even last night, when we get caught in the midfield, he is so far up at times, and we're so up against it from a defensive point of view. But there are some goals. I mean, I know there was 9 at the weekend against Liverpool, but there's a lot that Jordan Zamora is sort of out of position.
I think people are targeting me a little bit as well, because they're sort of. I've noticed a lot of long ball, diagonal balls. Learning. Yeah, no, I know, but his height doesn't help him either, and people will target him.
It is just hype, though, Steve, and they've got a long way to go to prove themselves as Premier League footballers, both of them.
There is,
but I agree, but I don't think it's beyond them. I think they've got everything in their armoury to.
I'm not so sure.
With a good coach, I think they're perfectly capable, the pair of them.
Well, time will tell. I'm not so sure. Particularly Anthony.
Miserable git.
Always honest.
Right, let's finish what I was saying before we sidetrack. So subscribe to Cherries Red Army, hit the like button. Let us know your comments on this video if you weren't able to watch it live. I'd also like to thank our monthly members for your contributions. All of you on the screen right now, thank you very much. And anyone who's donated to buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Everything goes back into the channel. We improve our equipment and we are able to provide these streams for you. Final thought, guys, when we were talking about left back, is Danny Rose, I think, has been released. I know he's not. No, the thing is, I'm not saying I would buy Danny Rose. We have got a left back issue, though. Is this something the club could be looking at? I think we know that Danny Rose is not. I mean, if you've ever seen the series, the Tottenham series on Amazon Prime, whatever, I don't think he's probably the easiest player, Matt, to work with. But we haven't solved this left back problem yet, have we?
Yeah, but I think he would be another Ryan Fredericks at best. To be honest, I think he's.
Best years behind him.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not for me.
I think he'd want big money, and I think he's problematic as well.
Yeah, not for me. Definitely not. I think we should maybe be looking at a lone left back from a Premier League club, a top Premier League club, but a much younger and more left back with far more sort of years in him and potential than Danny Rose. I think not for me, not at all.
Before anyone marks that I want Danny Rose, I'm just throwing it out there. Going
sounded like you loved him.
So I just, maybe we just need another left back. Right, guys.
I think there's probably there's a case to say that's why we've got a couple of utility, players that can play there if we need them.
Yeah.
I personally think the fact that we've only really got one recognised left back on the books is pretty laughable, to be honest.
He's a worry.
No, I agree.
I think, as much as I think I totally agree that Danny Rose is not necessarily the right man, but bringing in the thing is bringing in maybe the Leif Davis of this season, a young left back from from a bigger Premier League side. I think I want someone with experience. I want someone that's defensively solid. I mentioned, in our sort of possible transfers just made up of the spot. I mentioned Charlie Taylor. I mean, he's playing. Admittedly, that would cost money, but he's now playing as centre back for Burnley. But someone in that mould, someone with plenty of years in him, that is just going to be a solid defensive player rather than the attacking option that Zamora is. But I do think we need to try and get someone else in the door. But I don't think we've got space in the squad. We've now got 25 players, and we need to get rid of someone to bring anyone else in. So that's the problem we've got.
Still think we missed out on Harry Toffolo as well. But again, we could go.
He's not
on
even going to start
all-
for Forest now. Got Lodi in from Atletico
I know.
Madrid.
Could go on all night. Right, John, say your goodbyes on this latest video. Do we sign anyone else between now and 11 o'clock? 2 hours and 5 minutes to go.
No. Unfortunately, yes, it's Jacob Tanswell said that the Redmond move is off, which whatever you thought about that, it's not happening anymore. So I would imagine that we can all get an early night now. But yes, thank you very much for having me on again, Kirk.
Steve, your turn to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us on this stream and playing the games that we've included for everyone. And do we sign anyone else this evening, or are we done?
Oh, I'm just going to caveat John with a yes, just because. No reason. But, we've got a few hours left. We're obviously, there's still a few things floating around that may come off, but more hope than, than anything else. Maybe a left back, you never know.
Matt wants to know, or Tiggs wants to know, if Matt Ritchie's been seen in the New Forest today, Matt.
Well, he's been linked so many times now, and he's still got his place in the New Forest, I believe. So that would be one that I would definitely welcome. I think as a utility player, great experience, great connection to the club. We need a left back and we need a forward, don't we? Whether this is going to happen now so late in the day, probably not. But we live in hope. We live in hope. But pleasure as always being on, Kirk. Really enjoyed it, and let's look forward to Forest on Saturday. I'll see you up there, Steve. John, are you going?
Yep, I'll be there.
Good man. See you up there.
And if you see these guys, do say hello to them and make sure they buy you a drink. All right. So enjoy the game if you are going.
Is that why you never go to the games?
My Newcastle ticket came through this morning. So yeah.
And anyway, Kurt, they shouldn't be buying us drinks. We shouldn't be buying them drinks. They need to buy us a coffee.
That's right. Absolutely right.
It's
time to go when Todd Cantwell's name pops up in the chat. And that's when you know it's time to maybe close out the show. So this has been your match preview for Nottingham Forest. It's been an extended preview because of transfer deadline day. Nathan Redmond turned around on the M27. He's gone back towards Hive and said, no, thank you. Not signing. Maybe Dembele stays. But thanks for joining us. Thanks to John. Thanks to Steve. Thanks to Matt. Thank you to our Forest guests as well. And let's see what happens between now and 11 o'clock. But what will happen is Gary O'Neill will take this side on Saturday to Nottingham Forest. We will get a result, hopefully, and we'll play positively and continue to grow in this Premier League season. Thanks for joining us this evening. Look after yourselves, and we will see you on the next one. Up the cherries.
You Reds.